In our earlier conversations, we touched on the importance of play, and I asked Carin to please expound on the importance because it is not only for physical activity, but for so much more. Carin, what is the traditional thinking around play?
Um, I think people see it as a frivolous luxury. I often hear it's time for children to blow off steam or for chubby kids to burn a few calories. It's the childish part of being a child. It's totally undervalued and underestimated. Well, I think there's a tendency to realize all of a sudden, oh, my child gets all the stimulation through play, but still, if a professional specialist would look at your child, what would they do? They would actually sit and observe while they're playing. That's what they do. They would do it sometimes hours. So while they're actually looking, they're looking at how the child engage, how they communicate, the language used, and what type of play are they at. There's play development that needs to happen. Do they use toys symbolically? Are they busy with construction yet? How do they participate? Do they come forward with ideas? Do they build on ideas from other children? There's so much you can get out of play. So I've never actually had parents come to me and say, oh, I'm concerned about my child's play development. It's usually something academically related, but play is often the telltale sign that you can see there's concerns. So play is really, really important. And I think if we want to go and look at the properties of play, me and a friend of mine, just a while ago, we went to the tennis courts and we haven't been playing tennis in decades. So it was so fun and it was the closest I came to play in a very long time. So if we would have gone and would have been forced to play an entire game for 5 days a week, it wouldn't have been fun. Or if she would have turned up there with a schedule, okay, now you do this 10 times and you do serving and you do your volleys, and it wouldn't have been play. If there was an expert around telling us, oh no, stop, try that surf again, try that surf again, try that, it wouldn't have been play. So that tells us what play should look like. It should be choice, self-control, self-directed, intrinsically motivated. It should expand spontaneously. So that's really what we're looking at to see if something is play or not, because we often don't realize we each of us have certain ideas. If I say the word play, you immediately get certain ideas in your head about what play should look like, but often we miss the most valuable play of all. So people now realize that my child played Play-Doh, so they get the sensory input, but that's just your obvious things happening, the gross motor, the fine motor, the perceptual information, maybe the sensory feedback, the stimulation they get from play. But if you look at things like the two hidden senses, not only the vision and the hearing and the touching and the smelling and the tasting, but the proprioception and the vestibular input that children get from play, that's really where it's very important to get the whole body moving. Because what's proprioception? It's your body giving feedback to your brain every time you move, from your joints, your muscles, your ligaments, giving information to your brain as to exactly where that limb is now, at what speed it moved, and that's what we call manual dexterity. So a child wouldn't be able to do good handwriting. It would be a laborious job if the proprioception isn't good enough or finely tuned enough. You would often see a little child pressing really, really hard or having a very difficult time just forming a letter. So that's why the proprioception is so important. Another lovely thing about proprioception is the ability to regulate a child and help them just being available for what comes in. So proprioception can also be used when we try to adapt for our children, with a heavy blanket, we call it, or if children jump on a trampoline, it's not just burning calories or burning off steam. They get proprioceptive feedback. That's why often you find some children tend to push a ball a lot. They need that. Handling heavy loads, working with a wheelbarrow, pulling weeds, and Play-Doh, working against resistance. That's all your proprioception, which is so important for learning to happen, to be able to do your writing, and just to having a good posture while you're doing things. The vestibular system, I'm sure people know now more about it, but the vestibular system is the little snail structure in your inner ear filled with fluid. Every time you move, the fluid changes and give information to the little hairs going to your brain. Every movement you make, every coordinated movement needs to come from that base. So when I'm just attempting a step, I need to know where am I in relation to gravity. So all that juices comes through play and being able to play, and not being able to move the body enough often leads to the sensory processing disorder epidemic we're seeing at the moment. So during play, kids, they practice to think before they act. Self-regulation, they practice empathy, anger. It's a safe environment to practice all of those emotions. It's fine to do that. And you know what? Play gives the parent, the adult, that sacred entry place for connection, to be able to bond, to be able to share, if the parent is willing to follow. You know what, we often come into play with our children and then we have an idea and it's not long and you've taken over everything. It's not self-directed anymore. It's like the coach coming in telling me how to hit that ball all over and over. So that's also what we do. We hit off an idea to the child. He doesn't respond to it quickly enough. We don't wait too long. We want that response right away, and they need time to process. So we hit another ball, another ball, another ball, and we're not actually exercising anything, because they need to react on the idea and hit the ball back. So we try to get this chain of communication going. And that's actually a way to practice concentration. Being able to, oh, that's what she did, and now I do that. But it's within the context of interest and play that you can actually do that. Instead of trying to have you just listen to me for half an hour, that's not practicing concentration. Yeah. The ability to react in an appropriate manner on the idea that you gave, and then I'm giving, that's the way we actually exercise that. Kids play out what they've they're busy with. My children, I can see what they're busy learning with, of what they're busy with in their heads. They would play, we would do American history, Civil War, and they would be North and South. And you know what? They're actually taking a step back and thinking and consolidating what the information they received. And they would actually sometimes come back and ask me really good questions regarding that. So it's a time for a child to take a step back and play out the information they got. Play is really essential for motor planning, and that's where I often, as an occupational therapist, can see that the wheels are coming off, is when a child battles to play, because they can't plan it, because every motor action, every activity a child does, there first has to be an idea. We call it ideation, and then they have to come up with a plan, and then actually just execute it. That's just hitting something, as simple as that. So motor planning, the feedback they get from the body actually feeds into this, making it more easier next time to plan that. We call it praxis, or you might have heard dyspraxia, and you see it in your academic skills as well. So that's where the play, actually, it's their job to exercise the motor planning. And also, we talked about this before, play is the only area in your child's day where he's got total sense of control to come up with the next spontaneous idea and to build up on that idea, or their fantasy world or their imagination. And studies, they did this lovely study about the rats, and the rat had a little wheel inside the cage, and he could prevent being shocked by running this wheel. It's terrible. So they took out the wheel, and they didn't shock the rat, but the stress just went through the roof because he was out of control. And that's the time during your child's day that he has the time to be back in control, the antidote for stress, coming up with ideas. Like I said, we should be very careful as homeschool parents not to micromanage and even take away our playtime and not value it enough. Even with older kids, Anelle, anytime you see exploration or that freedom ingredients, that's their playtime. That's their time for having control back. I want to read a quote from Judy Bogart's book. Can I show you?
Yes,
book?
please.
It's a book. It's a lovely book by Judy Bogart, The Brave Learner. You can actually go and Google her. Lovely, lovely information for parents there. Oh, she's a mom of 5. She homeschooled 5 children, and she's now helping homeschool parents just to open our eyes for so much possibility. As children get older, parents lose confidence in joyful exploration as the key to educational growth. We set school schedules and require obedient study. What would happen though if we expanded our ideas of learning to include playful engagement at every age and stage? Food for thought.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, my son would also ask me to come play Lego with him, and it's free play. And I'm like, can I just follow the manual and build according to the manual? We've forgotten how to play. And he'll also complain, and he says, why don't adults play? You just sit there and chit chat chat.
Yeah. You know what? You mentioning the Lego now. Me and my boy, we got to a stage in our relationship where I just expected so much of him, and his court was full of balls, and I'm so grateful for Lego, because I actually just went back to where he was at. I just sat with him and played Lego days on end, Anelle, and that rescued our relationship. Me being willing to step into his world, and immediately I also had lovely plans. I want to get all the moneykies out of the Timber card bucket. It freaked me out. And then I would, put all the moneykies there next time. All the moneykies are back in the bucket again. But just, it was amazing to see the joy, the pure joy in my child. For me, to step into his world and share that magical time with him.
Good. No, play, definitely important. Thank you very much, Carin.